The number on the screen said $1.4 million. It wasn't real. I know that now. I knew it, somewhere underneath, for weeks before I let myself say it out loud. But on that night, the 11th of June, sitting in my home office at 3 a.m. with my wife asleep upstairs, the number on the screen said $1.4 million, and I believed it, because I needed to believe it, because the alternative was that I'd just lost everything. I had a master's degree. I'd been a senior project manager at the same engineering firm for 19 years. I'd given a TED Talk once about critical thinking and risk assessment, and I'd just sent $420,000 to a woman who didn't exist. This is the story of how it happened. Not because I want your sympathy, I don't. I want something more useful than sympathy. I want you to never sit in the chair I sat in. It started on a Tuesday in February, a LinkedIn message. The profile picture was a woman in her early 40s, Vietnamese Australian, the bio said. Investment banker. Hong Kong office. Photo on a yacht. Photo at a charity gala. Photo with her small white dog, professional but warm. The kind of profile that looked in every way exactly like what it was supposed to look like. Call her Lynn. That's the name she used with me. I learned later she used at least 11 names with at least 43 other people. But on that Tuesday, she was Lynn. And her opening message was, I'll admit, brilliant. She didn't flirt. She didn't compliment me. She apologized. I'm so sorry, the message said. I think LinkedIn has matched us in error. I was trying to reach Daniel Chen at your firm. Please disregard. I wrote back, of course, because that's what a polite professional does. No worries. You've reached the wrong person. Good luck finding him. And she replied with a small joke about how she really should pay more attention to which Daniel she was messaging at 3 a.m, and I replied with a joke back. And within 45 minutes, we were having a conversation about international engineering projects in Southeast Asia. This is the thing about pig butchering scams that nobody tells you. They are not in the end about romance. The romance is the lubricant. The product they are selling is not love. The product they are selling is belonging. I was lonely. I want to be honest about that because I think it matters. I was 53 years old. My marriage was fine. My marriage was the marriage of two people who'd built a life on autopilot and forgotten, somewhere along the way, how to be curious about each other. My wife was a good woman. She is still a good woman. We had stopped somewhere around our 15th anniversary, having conversations that surprised either of us. And here was Lynn, asking me about my work, about engineering risk models, about a paper I'd written in 2019 that she claimed to have read, asking me about my opinion, asking me what I thought. By the end of February, we were messaging every day. By the middle of March, I was checking my phone the moment I woke up. By the start of April, I had bought a second phone, a cheap prepaid one, because I'd started to feel, in some peripheral way I refused to examine, that I didn't want my wife to see what I was reading. I told myself it was because the conversations were professional, confidential. About investments she was working on, I told myself a lot of things that spring. The investment opportunity came up casually in mid-April. She wasn't selling it. That's the part I keep coming back to. She wasn't selling it. She mentioned, in passing, that her firm had access to a Hong Kong regulated crypto arbitrage platform, something to do with price differentials between Asian and US exchanges. She was using it herself, she said. Her uncle had built the algorithm. It was returning, she said, between 2 and 4% per week. I laughed when she told me. I told her that was absurd, that any returns like that were either a scam or insider trading. And she laughed back and said, I know. That's what I said when my uncle first showed me. I made him explain it 3 times. And then she explained it. And the explanation, I have to tell you, was good. It was technically literate. It used real terms. It referenced real exchanges. It had the texture of something that could be true. I didn't invest. Not for 3 weeks. I want you to hear that. I didn't invest for 3 weeks. I'm a man who has spent his entire career evaluating risk. I asked her for documentation. She sent me a regulatory filing, which I later learned was forged, but at the time looked entirely legitimate. I asked her how I could verify the platform. She gave me the URL. The website was professional. It had a customer service line that someone actually answered. It had a trading interface. It had two-factor authentication. I started with $2,000. That's the hook. That's the entire architecture of the trap. I started with $2,000, and over the course of 3 weeks, that $2,000 became, on the screen, $4,620. And then, and this is the part that destroyed me, I withdrew 500 of it. The withdrawal worked. $500 hit my real bank account 3 days later, exactly as the platform had promised. It came from a Singapore-based corporate entity that had filings I could look up. It was, for all intents and purposes, real money in my real account. And in that moment, sitting at my desk on a Sunday afternoon in early May, looking at $500 that had genuinely appeared in my bank account, I made the decision that would cost me everything. I decided to scale up. I sent $50,000 on the 7th of May from our savings account. I told my wife, and this is the part I'm most ashamed of, I told my wife I'd moved it into a short-term term deposit at the bank. By the 20th of May, the screen said $68,000. By the 1st of June, it said $112. I sent another $200,000. It was, the platform told me, a particularly good month for the algorithm. By the 11th of June, the screen said $1.4 million. I tried to withdraw $200,000. The withdrawal didn't process. I waited a day. I checked the platform. There was a small notification I hadn't seen before. Something about a regulatory compliance review on withdrawals over $50,000. Standard, the platform said. Routine. Would clear in 24 hours. It didn't clear in 24 hours. I messaged Lynn. She said, on a business trip in Tokyo. She would look into it. She came back to me 8 hours later. Slightly apologetic, slightly amused. There was, she said, a Hong Kong tax obligation on large withdrawals. A flat 15% capital gains tax that needed to be paid before the withdrawal could process. It would, of course, be returned to me along with the withdrawal. It was just how the regulation worked. The tax on a $200,000 withdrawal from a $1.4 million account was $42,000. I took out a personal loan. I paid the tax. I waited. The withdrawal didn't process. There was, the platform told me, a secondary verification fee. I paid it. There was an anti-money laundering hold that required a deposit to release. I paid it. There was a final compliance bond. By the 28th of June, I had sent another $78,000 in fees, trying to release a withdrawal that did not, had never, would never exist. My wife found me on the 29th. I had been at my desk for 14 hours. I had not slept. I was on the phone with what I believed to be the platform's compliance department, a man with a strong accent who was explaining to me that the final release fee was $60,000, and that, without it, my entire account would be frozen indefinitely. She stood in the doorway, in her dressing gown, and she looked at me, and she said, very quietly, "David, what is happening?" I want to tell you that I told her the truth in that moment. I didn't. I told her I was working on a complicated project. I told her to go back to bed. I told her the truth 6 hours later, on the kitchen floor, $420,000, our savings. A personal loan I had taken out without telling her. 3 smaller loans on credit cards I had opened in my name only. She didn't yell. I almost wish she had. She sat down on the kitchen floor opposite me in her dressing gown, and she said, "Show me her photo." I showed her Lynn's photo. My wife, and this is the moment in my life that I will remember on my deathbed. My wife looked at the photo for 10 seconds, and then she opened her own phone. and she did a reverse image search. The photo was of a Vietnamese pharmacist who lived in Toronto. Her name was not Lynn. She was 31, not 43. She had no idea her face was being used. She was, my wife told me quietly, the seventh result on Google Images. I had sent $420,000 to a woman who could be found in 7 seconds. The first thing my wife did, and I will be grateful for this until the day I die, was not leave me. The first thing she did was open her laptop and find me a number. She found 3 numbers, actually: the local police, the Federal Anti-Fraud Reporting Agency, and this is the one that mattered, the FBI's IC3 Internet Crime Complaint Center. We are not American. But the platform, it turned out, had US routed servers. And that single technicality meant the FBI had jurisdiction. I filed the complaint on the 30th of June. I did not expect anything to come of it. What I didn't know, on the day I filed that report, was that I was the 416th victim of the same operation. What I didn't know was that an FBI task force in Phoenix had been building a case against the platform for 14 months. What I didn't know was that the call center I had been speaking to was located in a fortified compound in eastern Myanmar, where roughly 200 trafficked workers had been forced, at gunpoint in some cases, to run the scam I had fallen for. What I didn't know, on the 30th of June, was that my $420,000 was sitting, along with roughly $290 million from other victims, and a series of crypto wallets that the FBI had been mapping for over a year. The arrests happened on the 14th of September. 11 men were indicted. The compound in Myanmar was, with the cooperation of the Thai government, raided in October, and 147 trafficked workers were freed. Of the $290 million, the FBI recovered, eventually, about 62%. In March of the following year, I received a letter from the United States Department of Justice. It informed me that I was eligible for partial restitution. The amount returned to me 11 months later was $263,000. I lost $157,000 I will never get back. I will be paying off the remaining personal loan until I am 61 years old. My wife and I went to counseling for 16 months. We are today in a marriage that is in some ways stronger than it has ever been, and in some ways, in the specific way of trust that is rebuilt rather than original, quieter than it used to be. I gave my TED Talk again last year, a different one. I called it The Architecture of My Own Stupidity. It has, at the time of this recording, been viewed 7 million times. Here is what I want you to take from this. Not pity, not horror, just this. The scam that took me did not work because I was stupid. It worked because I was lonely and tired and at a stage of life where I had stopped being curious about my own marriage. And someone built a machine, specifically designed to find men in exactly that condition. The machine was operated by trafficked workers in a compound who were themselves victims of a different scam. Every part of the system was engineered with extraordinary care to feel real. If you are listening to this and you have a Lynn or a David or a Marcus or whatever the name is that has been sliding into your messages with just the right amount of professional warmth, I want you to do one thing, and one thing only. Take their photo, reverse image search it, today. If they're betrayal, they will still be there tomorrow. If they are not, you will save yourself everything I lost, and more. The compound in Myanmar was rebuilt within 4 months of the raid. There are, the FBI estimates, between 200 and 300 similar compounds operating right now across Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. They are, collectively, the largest organized crime operation in human history. They are bigger than the global cocaine trade. They are bigger than human trafficking, although they are also, in a sense, human trafficking. They are looking for you, right now, the same way they looked for me. You don't have to be foolish to be taken. You only have to be human. at the wrong moment, in front of the wrong machine. Be careful out there. I'll see you next week.